For those people I haven't met before, hello. Hopefully you're all here for a secret success formula to speaking at conferences. Let's see if I can deliver. So the agenda is to look at finding events to apply to look at how you submit your session abstracts, and also to consider personal branding. So as we consider personal branding, I'd like you to think about how I introduce myself as I'm doing this session, and see how you feel that the session introduction fits in with the brand that we're trying to present of ourselves. Okay? So, and that's why I'm sat down at the moment, because I want the video to capture this part. And one of the reasons I've had this t-shirt made is it's part of how I brand myself. I brand myself as an MCT and normally present in a t-shirt which is MCT logoed, whether it's an MCT event or not. Okay? Thinking about the sessions I was doing at this conference, I wanted something that had both the MCT and the MVP logo on. So that's why I'm sat here in a t-shirt with both. And then I went mad and put other logos on the sleeves. And unfortunately, I forgot I could have done the back, otherwise I could have had my nice new avatar on the back as well. Okay, so normally when I'm doing a session like this, I will introduce myself and I'll say, my name's Sarah, yeah? And if you don't know me, feel free to look me up on social media, but you're here to learn about the topic of the event, not about me. But you do also have the QR code where you'll also find the slides from today I shared. Okay. From a training perspective, I'd also like to let you know that on my QR code, you will also find a link to my transcript. You'll also find a link to my MVP profile, and also all of my socials as well. So from a training perspective, or generally when I'm giving a session, I usually just send people to that Linktree code, and then they can get the slides, but you have all the other stuff there as well if you need it when you're presenting as a trainer generally. Okay. So what makes a good speaker profile? And why have I changed my profile picture to the avatar that I built with Copilot? Sorry, apologies for mentioning the C word. The profile picture that I've worked with for a while, I don't like. Who likes pictures of themselves? So I wanted something that said who I was and conveyed my personality and what's important to me, the MCT. Yeah, if I go back, first thing hopefully you see are those big letters in the middle. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to convey. That's why I'm switching to using that image now as my personal brand. And also it's a little bit of vanity as I get older. I like the pictures of me when I'm younger, but unfortunately they don't kind of match reality. So at least if I go with something that's not real, I don't have to consider that. But you've got to think about, what does your speaker photo say about you? Okay. What does your profile picture? Obviously, we need to know who you are. You need to have a nice tagline that explains who you are. Ideally, use that same tagline across all of your socials. Be consistent. And then you need a biography. Don't go to town. Okay? I want to know enough, but you know, when I'm looking at sessions to pick for a conference, or when I'm looking at sessions to attend at a conference, I'm not going to read your book about you. I want to know a little bit about you. I don't need War and Peace. Okay? And any links. This is all about establishing our credibility. So that profile, that speaker profile that we build, and our social media profiles, and our persona that we present when we introduce ourselves, is all about establishing our credibility, establishing who we are and making ourselves recognisable. So when I submit to another event, they want me because they think I'm good, because my face is everywhere. So they want my face on their website as well. So that's a really important part. And I think one of the biggest bits of this is the brand. Okay, so personal branding is one of the keys to success for speaking at events. Think about events you've attended, especially when you first started going to community events and conferences. You went for the big names. You go for the Sammys of the world. You want to go to those sessions. They're the superstars of the community. They're the people you want to see. You want to set yourself up from the word go to be one of those superstars. Yeah? So, personal branding, hugely important. A couple of definitions here. As I say, I've given you the slides to download. Please don't feel you have to read them. But the idea is your personal brand is what people see, what they think of when they think of you. So if someone says to you, Sarah Fenner, I want you to think MCT. That is what I want my personal brand to be linked to. So that's what I'm working towards. Okay? In terms of branding, in terms of your personal branding, it's the activities, it's the actions you take to keep that brand in people's minds. How are you setting that? What are you doing about that? And why, as I say, it's that recognition. How many of those do you recognise? 2. I'm going to guess most of you don't recognise this one.
I saw a sticker downstairs.
Yeah, a sticker downstairs, Loop. Yeah, so Microsoft Loop, one of the newer tools in the Microsoft 365 family of mess tools. But it doesn't have the recognition. I bet if I'd used the Copilot logo, you would have all recognised the Copilot logo. So that branding is important. What about these? What do these say? What do these brands say to you? For this example, this one, what does that say? 365. Yeah? Do you think that the person who uses that logo, do you think they're male or female? Okay, what do you think? What's their name? Okay, so Zoe Wilson has just rebranded herself as Zoe 365, and that's where that comes from. What does this say to you? Yeah. It says to me Sarah's fingernails. Got to get them in the recording. Yeah, so that they mean something. If you know this lady, anyone know Joy Apple? Okay, if you know Joy, that is Joy. That really is Joy. She has beautiful long red hair, and she does SharePoint. Joy of SharePoint. This is not so good. This is one of my early attempts. Built-in PowerPoint, really obvious. And some of the others in there. I think this one, I really like this one. Obviously, I'm wearing it on my other arm. Okay. This means something to me, but I think it's too subtle. Did you notice the letters of Viva are the Microsoft colours? Okay. Did you notice there's a compass in there for the North Star objective? Yeah, it's too subtle. Okay. And I bet you can get what that one, guess what that one is. Okay. So we need to consider, therefore, what our brand says about us. What do we want to say? What do we want it to be? Your logo can be your profile picture, but if it's not, please think about all those things we've just discussed. Yeah? And consider where you're going to go. Consider your growth. And I apologise for the number in the corner. I thought I'd taken all of those off. You don't want to lumber yourself with a brand that can't evolve as your career does and as the technology does. That's why your name, is probably your best brand. Yeah. So, we've got a brand, we know who we are, we're ready to share it with the world. How do we find events to speak at? Okay, so we can use things like Sessionize. As I say, these slides are available for you to download. If you followed the link to my link tree, I've already published the slides on there. So if you use Sessionize, which a lot of events ask for their call for speakers to be submitted at, a lot of the session proposals, then that has a Discover Events section, which you can fill in, which you can use once you've listed your topics that you cover. So in your Sessionize profile, when you're building that, you've got to list the topics that you want to speak about. You've got to list your location. Be careful with that one. I'll tell you why in a second. But you've got to list the location you want to speak at so it can find you events. I'm saying be careful with location. Have you noticed the social media storm recently about the top 3% of speakers on Sessionize? Yeah? If you go and look at that, there is actually a map of where in the world the speakers are. Okay? I was quite surprised to see how accurate it was. I'm really glad I put on my speaker profile for Sessionize the nearest city to the one I live in, because my name's quite unique. If you look me, well, to be honest, if you look me up in Yorkshire, you could probably find my house, but please don't. Ring me first, okay? Don't just turn up. I'm sociable, but I'm not that sociable. Yeah, so do be careful with that location. Do think about what personal information you're giving out. We are public people in this business, but we do need to think about our privacy and security as well, to a certain extent. Okay, there is also several services here that collect calls for speakers. Follow people who speak, see where they're posting about speaking, then follow that event on socials to see when their call for speakers opens next time. Okay, if there's an event you really want to speak at, make sure you set alerts so you don't miss it in all the noise of everything that's going on socials, that sort of thing. Get friendly with existing speakers and ask them where they're submitting to, what's open. Maybe ask them to consider a joint session with you going forward if you're new to the business, and then you'll find out about events and which ones they're submitting for as well. And then you've got to sell your idea. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so follow the events. And also, as I say, other speakers, because people will start sharing when events are announced. Yeah. I normally post if I've been accepted, not if I've submitted. Personally, I don't like advertising that I've tried to do something if it doesn't succeed. Well, that's an interesting point you make there, Julian. Okay, so our session abstract, what you submit is the key to being selected. So the first ingredient in your formula is your profile, your brand. The second big ingredient is your session abstract.
It depends on who's doing the selecting.
Exactly. So okay, You have to be a mind reader. You need to know what the events want. Okay? If you know what the event is looking for, then you can tailor your session to match the event. Look at the agenda from last year. Sorry, I'll get out of the way so you can all read it. Look at the agenda from last year. Look at what events, what type of sessions they pick. Look at the call for speakers and what they're asking for in there. Look at what tracks they've got. Look at the order that the tracks are written in. They're not in alphabetical order. The ones they think are most important are at the top. Okay? Speak to people who've spoken at that event before. Ask what sort of event it is. Yeah, so you know what you're trying to fit into.
Is it for the attendees, like business or technical?
Yeah, a lot of events are now looking for a mix of sessions. You know, I bet if we go to any technical event this year, at least half of the sessions will be about Copilot. I confess, I am speaking about Copilot at least 3 times in the next 3 months. Okay, how much do I know?
Yes.
Slightly more than yesterday as well. And that's the point, that we bring ourselves to these sessions as well. Okay, so all of that is important, but what's not on there is you. Okay, so try and find out what the event organisers are looking for, so that you can try and craft your submission to suit what they are after. Now, I really, really do not expect you to read this as a slide. Okay, as I say, you can download it. This was posted on social media several years ago on Twitter by Tracy van der Schiff, who is an MVP from South Africa. Her focus is primarily end user training and projects around SharePoint. Okay. And she is an absolutely lovely lady. Not that it matters, because this is really gold. This is your secret formula. Okay? How you write your session abstract is your marketing piece. Yeah? As Julian mentioned, the title is very important. It needs to be a relevant title. It needs to be catchy. It needs to be short. It's got to fit on the schedules. You've been looking at Sessionize Planner on the board. I confess my 2 sessions at this conference are perhaps not the best titles. I'm not saying I'm the best. I'm not in any way saying that. But do have a look at the sessions titles of the sessions you're picking, and why are you picking them? I bet half of it is the title. Okay. And then the abstract. Now, the reason I think the abstract is super important is a lot of events are now switching to blind session selection. Yeah. And even events that don't use a platform that supports taking the name of the speaker off. A lot of those give people the abstract without the speaker name. I've had sessions, I've rejected sessions, and I've had sessions rejected because my name was in the abstract. Okay. I've also rejected sessions from people who are excellent speakers and would have done an absolutely fantastic job, because their abstract was, Fred will talk about this.
To the room where there's not any effort in the talk, just tell us like, you go to one of them, essentially through random things. Everybody does that. Some of them are just awful. It's just fit something in 30 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially if you're new to public speaking, because you haven't got that persona, people are not going to go back to you and say, we didn't actually select a session of yours out of the blind selection, but we'd really like you to speak. Which was your favourite session out of the ones you submitted? And then ask you to adjust the abstract to fit in with the session. There are some events that just will not do that, but there are others that adjust that because they want those faces, because faces sell conference tickets. Yeah, so, yeah. So if you don't submit, once you become a face, then you get asked. That's why this session is on. Okay, because I was coming anyway and someone dropped out. So they asked me which one of the others would I rather do. Yeah. And then there are the ones that you turn up to and they go, oh, we've got a speaker not turned up. Come on. You're like, have I got any slides? Yeah. So there are exceptions to this, but that structure is the way you want to build your abstracts. So that problem statement at the start. Okay. Eric talked about punch in your presentation, starting your presentation with a punch. This is your reason. We build abstracts like this day in, day out for our training sessions. It's just a shorter version of that. And actually, I've found that by following this, my training session abstracts are better as well. My course outlines, much better, in my humble opinion. And I've got more work, so it must be doing something. So think about the problem you're addressing, think about why someone would come to your session. Okay, and then the total abstract. Bullet points is a bit of a contentious one. I like them in the session abstract because it's very clear what people are going to talk about. When I'm writing a session abstract, I also find it very useful to kind of plan out what I'm going to do in the session, and that those bullet points help me start to structure my session. When I submit a session abstract, I've got the sketch outline of my session built, so when it comes back accepted, fingers crossed, I've already got the bones of what I wanted to say, especially as, you know, in about a week or two, we're probably going to get a call for speakers open for ESPC, which takes place in November, December. Call for speakers is normally February. Okay, that's a long time. You submit a session in February, you deliver it in end of November. You know, sorry? Things have changed, or they haven't changed as you expected. That's the other one. So having that structure is really helpful. But it's still got to be something that's going to be relevant when you deliver the session. Okay, so lots and lots of things to think about in those bullet points. Some conferences actually specifically ask you not to put bullet points in your session abstract because the tool that they use doesn't display them properly. Don't then just put them in anyway. Okay, if the guidance is please don't use bullet points, then please don't. But by all means plan it out, then just rewrite it so it's not bulleted list. And don't think you can get away with using dashes or things instead. It doesn't work. It looks rubbish in the session agenda and in their selection tool. So you're not going to get picked. Okay. I mentioned in Julian's session earlier this week when he was talking about opportunities for trainers that people go to these events in some cases as an alternative to training courses. Some of the events are free, and that means it's easier for them to get budget from their company. So what they're interested in from your session is what they're going to learn, and a list of the technologies that you're going to talk about as well. So include what you're going to tell them. Yep. And also the technologies that you're going to talk about. Technologies help if they don't help if it's a non-technical session, by the way. Okay, don't put that you're talking about Azure if you're not going to mention the word in your session. Yeah, don't just put them in. But people use the technologies as keywords to search agendas. Their organisers use them as keywords to help slot sessions in. So they generally say, we've got 5 slots for this track. And if they like your session, but it doesn't fit in those 5 slots, those keywords will help them decide where else it might slot in. Or if they haven't got enough sessions for a track, they might move your session in because they think from the keywords it would fit in there where they wanted it. So it helps them, the organisers, build the schedule as well. Helping the organisers is good. They're on your side. They like you.
Also, people tend to submit far too deep.
Yes, there's far too many people showcasing their skills. Is that a delicate way of putting it? Submitting, yes. There's always sessions that are there for people to show off how much they know. And then there's sessions which are far, far, far too low. Ladies, I know there's not many of us in the room, but we have a predisposition, a tendency to submit to sessions which are too low level, or to tag them as low level when they're actually not, when they're a level above. I have literally stopped submitting sessions and tagging them at level 100. Even if I think they're intro, I tag them as level 200. Because most organisers will take very, very few sessions at level 100. I've had the same session accepted, tagged at level 200, that was rejected at level 100 by the same selection committee. Okay, so watch out for that. This is why your branding is important. I go to events and I listen to the same sessions from the same people. And to be brutally rude, it's boring. It's dull. I am sick of seeing the same pale, elderly males standing up here talking about the same thing that they did 3 years ago when I first started on the speaking circuit. The same slides, the same topic title. Please give me something different. You. Yeah, I want your personality. I want to be interested. I want to be enthused. Even if I go to 100 conferences in a year, but in fact my bank manager would murder me, I want to enjoy those. If you're new to speaking, something in that session, abstract, has got to catch the organiser's attention. Something in that abstract has got to say, this is the person I want to speak about Copilot. Not all of those people who've been speaking about it for 1,000 years. I want this person because they're bringing something new and unique and fresh. Okay. Be the bright light that stands out. Be the something different. Not by falling over as you're walking around beside presenting, as I nearly did there. But yeah, bring something unique to the event. And as Julian rightly said at the start, the title is hugely, hugely important. A lot of people don't read past the session title. If I've got 2,000 sessions to evaluate, believe me, I am not reading all of those abstracts in detail. I read the title, I skim the abstract. Hence the bullet points, you catch my attention. Yeah. Can we use generative AI to help us? We can. But again, the session selectors, the event organisers, do not want to read a whole schedule built by a wonderful modern day Clippy. Okay, these tools are great for inspiration. So use them for inspiration. I give Copilot, because that's the one I'm using, my session abstract and ask it to do a title. I give it my ideas for titles and ask it to do an abstract. And I copy and paste all of those ideas into a OneNote, and then I write my own from those ideas. Okay? Not using the make it sound like me command, but using my brain. Ooh, my humanity. Novel concept, I know. But yes, use the tools you've got available to you. Why not? And then comes the end. What happens at the end when you get your sessions back, when you've submitted them? Some of you might know Bill. Okay, Bill Ayres is a veteran conference speaker. He is a very experienced MCT. He has a PhD. He is a supremely educated individual. And as you'll see from this video, he speaks very eloquently. And this is his take on what happens once the session submission has gone in.
Hi, I'm Bill Ayres, and I've been speaking for about 15 years all over Europe and North America at user groups, community events, and big commercial conferences such as Ignite. And in that 15 years, I feel like I've become a bit of an expert on getting rejections. I had a lot of rejections, believe me. Some of them really frustrating, for example, rival commercial conferences, and because I've agreed to speak at one of them, the other conference rejected. Or on one occasion, a big vendor conference, I was rejected, but they took my title and abstract and had one of their own speakers deliver it. Now, apart from these extreme cases, most of the time, there's no clear reason for a rejection, and you'll get a standard email message. It may just be that your topic didn't fit the agenda, or there were too many similar topics submitted by other speakers. There's an element of luck involved as well, and sometimes the content team are just doing the best they can, and maybe they didn't have that much time to figure out how to shoehorn your talk into the agenda because they're usually very, very busy. So, a few rules. Number one, take it on the chin. Don't pester them or complain. That's almost always counterproductive. Try not to take it personally, even if your best friend was on the selection committee. And of course, after 15 years, a rejection for me, is just like a knife to the heart every time. It still is. It doesn't get any easier. I've had my whole day ruined by a rejection to a conference I didn't even want to go to. It hurts. and you just have to deal with it. Rule 2, don't overanalyze. It's a bit like football. The difference between success and failure is quite narrow, and even past performance is no guarantee. I've given talks to packed rooms, great feedback scores, and then on a very positive note, you think it would be churlish not to submit to the same conference next year, and then you get rejected. It's not just about you. The job of a content team for a conference is to come up with an agenda for the audience. If you're part of that agenda, then great. But it's not their job to provide you with speaking opportunities. I don't even advise asking them why you weren't picked. Unless they volunteer that information, which is quite rare, they won't probably have time to tell you, and in any case, these discussions are often held in confidence. So try to resist that, and also try and resist the temptation to doom scroll the list of successful speakers. It's just too depressing. Rule 3, keep trying. So if at first you don't succeed, try. Okay, 3 tries, I think that's enough, because it takes a lot of time to submit to an event. You have to study their agenda, think of a catchy title, an engaging abstract. It's got to be technically accurate 6 months in the future. It all takes time, and that's a precious resource. So I'm not going to waste time on an event where the content team really don't want to know. So after 2 or 3 rejections, I'll probably stop submitting to that particular event. And rule 4 is aim lower. So the starting place for most speakers is local user groups. When I started, even that seemed like a bit of a closed shop. And I'd offer my services to user group organizers, and on quite a few occasions, I got pretty short shrift, I can tell you. Fortunately, the situation has improved, with many user groups setting aside time for new speakers, which is good. Now, these are often short lightning talks, and you should be aware that these are often the hardest because of the extreme time pressure. It might only be 5 or 10 minutes. You can't recover from mistakes or technical issues. So my advice for these kinds of talks is to keep it simple. And then with a few of those under your belt, you can graduate to the full local user group session of typically an hour, maybe even 2 hours, which in many ways is easier. You can then go on to do the one-day community conferences, which quite often nowadays include new speaker slots. Now, when it comes to the commercial conferences where the attendees have to pay, they'll generally be very focused on giving the attendee a good experience, and so they'll be much less likely to choose speakers without a proven track record. They're looking for speakers who are experts in their topic, have the skills to present it, and will be well prepared and professional. So some conferences will even ask for a list of where you've spoken in the last couple of years and what the feedback scores were. So if you submit as a complete newbie, your chances of selection at this kind of conference is quite low. So remember, if at first you don't succeed, aim lower. So to sum up, rejection, take it on the chin, don't overanalyze, keep trying up to a point, and aim lower. Good luck.
So that video is taken from a workshop that I've been presenting with a couple of other MVPs, a new speaker workshop, as is a lot of the content that I've been presenting today. And the link was to that video on YouTube. There's some other videos up there, including a really lovely one from Rex, I can't speak anymore, Rex de Koenig, who talks about his journey and speaker nerves. Okay, and so there's a lovely video there. And Rex is following the success formula that I've been advocating with you. And he's having quite a lot of success with that. His limitation is his comfort factor. And why would we push ourselves too far outside of our comfort zone? I don't know. It's voluntary. Why would you do something you don't enjoy? Okay. So in short, my success formula. The branding, the abstract, the title. Those are your 3 key components. with your session, always remember you need to start somewhere. You need the story in the middle, and you need the end. You need to be very clear on the value that you are bringing. And it takes time and effort to put those abstracts together. And as Bill says, you still get rejected. I started doing this 4 years ago. 4 years ago this week, I was at Ignite the Tour in London. And I went to that event to watch and learn. I knew a few MCTs in the community, and I kind of latched onto them and went, I'm not alone on this, I've got a buddy. Thank you, Julian. And I went to a talk that Donna Sarkar gave about imposter syndrome. And she stood on stage and said how nervous she gets, how much she feels like an imposter when she's up presenting. And I thought, well, look at her, look at what she's done. Why do I think I can't? So then I tried, and then COVID came. But that was an opportunity because there were lots of virtual events. By the time COVID finished, I had my first 2 in-person speaker engagements outside of the MCT world. First one was September 21. By October 21, I had an MVP award. It's gone bonkers. The world is mad. People think I've been doing this for thousands of years. I'm new. Okay? What I'm giving you here is what's worked for me. I get rejected. I probably get selected for about half of the conferences I submit to. At the end of this month, I'm going out to Miami, speak at a conference. I got rejected from that conference. So I sent the organizer a message saying, I'm coming anyway. If you need someone, I'm delivering a 1-day workshop for them on the C word that shall not be named. So I'm so glad there's something to talk about. But yes, there's no guarantees. There is no secret success formula. You can do your best. Rejection doesn't mean you failed. Keep trying, keep going, and enjoy. Thank you. We do have a few minutes left for any questions, but I am obviously still around for the rest of today as well if anyone does have questions. So happy to take them now, but yeah. QR code's on the end there, yeah.
Before COVID, videos. Have you seen that since?
I've not seen that since, but then most of us speaking-wise have sessions that we've done during COVID that have been videoed from virtual events. Anyone publishes a video of me speaking, I tag it in my YouTube channel. I have a channel, This Was Me, a playlist, This Was Me. So anyone publishes a video, that's where it goes. Yeah. So anyone asks for one, I refer them to that. And that's, I think, why, as speakers at this event, Torsten has challenged us to record ourselves so that we've got those videos. I have no idea if it's worked. We shall see in a bit.
Because user group is bigger.
Yes.
MCT Summit. So for next year's summit, because I think you get a relatively friendly audience. They know what it's about. You're not going to be criticised for the slightest little thing. welcoming.
Yeah. Exactly the same. As I say, my first speaking engagement outside of the MCT community. So first time I spoke in public, in person, was at a small UK MCT event. There's the London one that Ed ran. That would have been late 2018, early 2018, sometime around there. And then the European MCT Summit in Lithuania was my first proper conference session. Yeah. Julian attended my session as well. I obviously didn't do too badly. He's come back. And then, as I say, in person, post-COVID, Commsverse in 21.
Which is a big event.
It's quite a big event, yeah. Not quite, no, because it's Teams focused. I think it's just under 1,000, around about 1,000. Yeah. Yeah.
As a really new person conference speaking, I'll probably spend a lot of time preparing for this first submission, but now the experienced abstract writer, and you take to prepare the one?
I don't do it in one sitting. So I'll write something, let it, yeah. And if it's a topic I know other people might be talking about, I tend to ask them if they're submitting to that event as well. And say, I don't want to compete with you, and try and craft my session so it's different to theirs.
Also, the session so you can see what people are putting together.
Yeah. But for a new abstract, I would say typically about a day's worth of effort. For adapting one that I've done before, maybe updating it, less time. I try not to submit the same sessions. If I've had a session selected at an event, I try not to redo it, because, as I said, I want to see something new, so I think it's my responsibility to put in something new as well.
I'm not such a rejecting but if I'm not, it's not getting listed, it's not going to live on it. Normally sit up to like 2 up to 3.
Yeah.
So make sure you use those. I only got 1 or 2 or 3 key. Just as I think I got accepted with God before I was FDP, which is quite rare, because I took a little topic that nobody else was talking about, and I just threw it as my third option, and I got it. The first thing didn't get picked up.
Yeah, it's always my least favourite session that gets picked for some reason. No, not always, but quite often it's the one I...
Don't see it. I was on the between these very similar topics.
Yeah. I think we're probably at time, are we?
1 minute. What do you need?
1 minute, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, timed it, yes. So yes, as I say, if you have questions in the future, please feel free. And that is another good thing as well. If you want to get into speaking at conferences, or you've done 1 or 2, but you've not found it an enjoyable experience, or it's not been successful, then find somebody who does do these events and ask them to work with you. I've got a session just accepted for Teams Nation with a lady I've been mentoring for the last year, and we're speaking together. So I first got an email from her out of the blue asking me to help her give feedback on a session abstract, and then I've been working with her to help submit. There are a lot of public speakers, a lot of MVPs especially, who will want to do that because it counts as a contribution for us as well. We get the benefit from it, as well as obviously helping.
Question maybe is for the next session with MVP, but if you want to be MVP, you have to do some events, or you can try to be MVP and then go to events because it will be easier.
You don't need to speak at events to be an MVP.
Okay.
it, it helps because your face is known, and having a known face makes it easier to get in.
How do you register the event you have participate and show them that you have been there? Because, for example, I've made some meetups in Switzerland, but no one knows that I've done them.
Just for now, before any formal application process starts, just put it all over social media. I have a page on my blog post which I use to advertise that I'm speaking places, but it's also a list of where I've spoken before. One, it helps me remember, yeah, and two, it's a little bit of a bio as well. Right, I should stop my session. Thank you all very much.